And hi everyone, here we are. We're on YouTube. We've got Chef Charles Carroll with us today, the one and only, the M appeal of e-learning. Leslie Price. Yeah, don't mess with her. She can kick. And we're gonna have a great show today. We're gonna talk about a new book that is coming out in October, and we can't wait. We've actually had a chance to read the book, and we're excited. So. It'll be fun to actually have it in the hands of everybody. It's we'll talk more about that in a minute. But anyway, we can start the show recording. Let's do that now. And actually, before we do that, let me switch one shot. We'll start off with this shot. Okay, so Chef, we're going to start off with this shot. We'll run a quick intro, and then we'll introduce you. All right, so here we go. We have a new intro, by the way, and outro for that matter. Actually, not an outro.
Ooh,
new intro.
Exciting.
So it's shorter. The other one was torturous. But anyway, here we go. Start the show recording in 3, 2, and 1. Hi, everyone. Welcome to eLearn Chat, where talk, it's knowledge. And we're going to have some great talking today. And with us is... Well, you know, I make her come every single week. It's Leslie Price. I call her the M appeal of e-learning. Because she's tough. She knows what she wants and she knows how to get it. She is wonderful. Go check out her www.learnappeal.com. Don't miss that site. She's doing wonderful work for the third world and anybody else who needs computers and training where they don't have any access to the internet. It's really a cool project. So definitely check that out. We'll have that in the show notes as well. And let's see, shall we run our intro real quick? Here we go. And we are back. Well, we've got an author today, a cook, an Olympic champion. He's done a lot of different things, and both you and I read the book, and I think we both had the same feeling of, I think the words were, I love it.
Yeah, I loved it.
I loved it. And you know, we don't like that many things. We're pretty critical of a lot of stuff, and yet we both had the same exact opinion of this, and we're sure everyone, and you know, this was written by Chef Charles Carroll and John David Mann, who's written a lot of other books with Bob Berg, who's been on this show, and it's just great books. And not only are they inspirational, but they're lessons for everything from day to day to your job, to what your profession is or what your hobbies are. It doesn't matter. They apply to everything. Well, with us today, we've got Chef Charles Carroll. And Chef, how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Oh, we're so glad you could make it. And you've got two fans right here. Just right with you, you've got two fans who love the book. I have to tell you, the book is called The Recipe. And it is a recipe for success and greatness and so much more. And one thing I like about it, and I'll tell you right away, this should be mandatory reading in all schools at any age. Because it is the kind of thing they're not getting in schools anymore. And I think it might help some kids grow up a little bit, learn a little bit more about themselves, and get better direction. And now, you've been a cook most of your life, right?
I have. As a matter of fact, I grew up in a country inn. My mom and dad own a country inn in Vermont. And when you do that, you work 7 days a week and doing all the chores that everybody asks you to do. So from shoveling sidewalks and stocking fireplaces and bars, but I actually started cooking breakfast when I was for the guests when I was in 3rd grade. So that's pretty much all I knew. I wanted to be a chef or a professional basketball player, and 5'9" just didn't cut it. So
that's funny. Well, you know, your experiences as a chef have been pretty deep and pretty wide. I would definitely say you are a master chef at least. And I've seen some of your videos where you've taught a lot of kids, for example, kid programs. And then you've also done things like service to the military. Now, were you in the military?
I wasn't, but I'm incredibly inspired by our military, and I get in every time I hear the national anthem. To be honest with you, I get emotional, and I don't know, I don't know where that comes from, but a friend of mine asked me probably 8 years ago if I would go over to Afghanistan and put on a meal for our troops, and that didn't quite work out. So ever since then, I had this notion to do that. So, long story short, I've been over to Afghanistan 3 different times, and we put on, I think, a total of 7 or 8 shows. Anything from and 2 major ones that are 7-hour shows, and we fed 8,000 troops total Cajun Creole meal, and gave away 5 tons of gifts, and had 20 celebrities with me, and raised a lot of money to do it, and all went right to the troops. So it's something that's touched my heart, and it's been an amazing part of my life.
I tell you, we thank you for your service doing that, and it's just a pleasure to see that, because those troops, they have nothing when they're out there. It's just pretty miserable. And to have anybody come and visit, especially people who feed them, feeding, MREs are not good. So it
takes me back to reading. I don't know if you've read any of them, Charles, but the Spike Milligan books, when it was Adolf Hitler and my part in his downfall, and it was about all the stuff that the stars did for the troops during the Second World War, and the number of them that went over and performed to just raise spirits, lighten spirits, make life a bit more normal, was the response they got was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what were some of the things that motivated the writing of this particular book?
Well, I wrote the first book, Leadership Lessons from a Chef, to help chefs develop team-building tools and how to build great teams and get good people to want to work for you. And as I was touring around doing those presentations at a lot of schools around the U.S., I interviewed students, and I asked them, what do you want to do when you graduate? And the answer was, get a good job somewhere. And I thought, gosh, what a terrible answer. So that's why I wrote Tasting Success. And so those books were a lot of fun, and I'm really, really proud of them. And but then I wanted to write a book that just came pouring out from the heart. And one that you didn't have to do research on, one you didn't have to build charts on or that kind of thing. I just wanted to pour out from the heart and build a really emotional roller coaster ride. To touch people's hearts and hopefully make a difference with life lessons that way. And then I kind of bumped into John David Mann and learned a lot from him as well. So that's kind of where it started, the idea.
Yeah,
it certainly meant a lot to me, Charles. I started my career in learning, working in what you would call in the US a community college, where we were working with young people, an awful lot of whom had been told they were not very good at school. They weren't particularly academic. What were they going to do? They weren't sure. And so they came to college, and we worked with them on vocational skills. And I actually taught, believe it or not, I taught applied business economics to hospitality and catering students.
Wow. That's a handful right there.
And I also taught them a bit of entrepreneurship, because although they were doing hospitality, they also had to understand the world of business, because whatever they were going to do, business would be part of it. That's right. So, I say, and believe it or not, I'm also still friends on Facebook with 2 of the students that I taught, one of whom has just had his first baby and has his own 2 or 3 restaurants.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And even something else weird happened. One of your students bought your house.
Yeah, I was telling Rick earlier that I recently sold my house in the East Midlands, and It was, for the East Midlands, it was quite an expensive house. It was over £400,000. And this young lad came round, or I say young, 30-something, 38, came round my house. And he's asking me all kinds of weird questions, not about the house. And eventually I said something about Loughborough College. And he went, "Yes, I know, Mrs. Price. You were my teacher." And he put, honestly, Charles, he put down a 50% deposit on that house.
Wow.
And his father had died when he was a very young boy, and he was an only child. And as he grew up, his mother looked after him, and then he looked after his mother. And he then married, had a little boy, and his mother and his wife and his child were then going to be moving into my house. And I'd lived there for 23 years, bringing up my children. And I just think, what nicer than one of your students to then move in and grow his family in my house.
Yeah, they're amazing coincidences. And Chef, one of the things I'm thinking of the book, Chief. Chef, one of the things in the book that I really liked was the kid approach, a 14-year-old. It's a perfect approach for somebody who's totally confused. His father had died. What do you do? And how he had anger issues, and yet he developed that love for cooking, which he sort of had, and then that became that impetus. And I teach martial arts on the side. I've been doing martial arts since I was 10 years old. It's been over 50 years. And it's the same thing. You get that kind of student, the kids who are in trouble, they're doing badly in school, the parents don't want to deal with them.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they do pretty well in the martial arts. They do well in cooking. They do well in other things that get their attention like nothing else.
Practical vocational skills. Not everybody needs a degree in rocket science.
No, and in fact, most colleges right now don't teach anything of worth. Most people get out and they have no ability to get a job. And I so think we should bring back trade schools as official degrees after high school, if even, and where kids can learn things like cooking, can take it to that next level. And what I truly love about the book, and this is the recipe, is that the love for the art of cooking, the act of cooking, the coming from within rather than just eating and looking at it from without. That point gets across so beautifully well. And I'll tell you, a couple of times I'm reading the book and I've had tears in my eyes because it was just very touching. And when you can get emotion out of anyone, especially jaded, me, I go, that's really touching. That's great. And it wasn't one of those, kind of they try to, I call it the Spielberg type of emotion where they just totally manipulate you into the situation. No, this was just very natural, it just flowed. It flowed in there.
It would be a good movie.
Yes, it would be. It'd be a lovely movie.
I think so.
We have movie interest, actually. We have it in front of 4 producers, which probably means nothing at this point, but it is nice to know that that we do have some movie interest in it, and I agree with you. In fact, I wrote it with the intentions of it becoming a movie originally. I had 8 chapters written, and I liked what you touched on with the boy, and I'm so glad that I want emotion into it, and it's nice to know that when there's a lot of kids out there that people tell them that they're failures or they're not passing in a certain way, but it's amazing what you can do when you put them in the right environment. And that's what chefs. It's a hard job. It's early mornings, late nights, weekends, and holidays. But the benefit we have is cooking is really warm and it touches people's hearts. So. And that's what Owen learns at an early age. I mean, he was given that gift of finding something that he was good with, and he can relate that back to his dad. And food has such great life lessons in itself. That's why this is a perfect match of cooking and healing and life lessons. It all meshes together. Every chapter is a life lesson, and every chapter they cook something. And as it relates to life. So it's exciting. I mean, obviously, I enjoy it. You know, John and I love John's first book, well, not his first book, but The Go-Giver. Our tennis pro here at the club gave it to me and said it's a great book. I don't know that I loved it. I gave it to my boss, and then so all our managers read it. So one day I was at home and I was on Facebook and I just Googled him on Facebook and said hello and told him I loved the book, and he responded. And I said, wow, that's cool. He responded, and so I sent him another note, went offline, and sent him a note and told him about my first two books, and I told him about the idea of a third book, and John immediately loved it. He's a foodie, you know, he loved it, and we had a great conversation. And so after the conversation, I said, well, would you allow me to send it to you so I could get your professional? Because I have a couple of books, you know, I'm an author, but John Mann is an author, you know, I mean, he's a professional author, and so I was honored just to have a conversation with him, and so I sent it to him with some pasta, some dry organic pasta, and some I think it was sun-dried tomatoes, and a bottle of truffle.
You were trying to bribe him.
And so it was all over after that. So I waited 4 years for him because I was busy with Afghanistan and he was busy on a lot of projects. I waited 4 years because it was really important that I do it with John.
No, I genuinely, absolutely loved it. Genuinely, absolutely loved it. And possibly because I feel so passionately about vocational education. And I don't think that enough credit is given nowadays to vocational skills. It's beginning to happen in the UK. I was certainly involved a couple of years ago in writing a diploma and apprenticeship in digital learning design. So how young people can actually become involved in e-learning and the skills that they need. Because it's not normally, I don't know about being a chef, but certainly in the e-learning world, it's not something that is a career of choice. It's because it's not promoted. It's not promoted in the schools.
No, but I think
it's true, and you're a perfect example of that. You know, it's amazing. You know, I have to be careful because you know, I have a lot of I have a staff of 75 employees. We have 6 kitchens, and I've been here at the club for 17 years, and my whole thing is about team building and trying to inspire young professionals. My whole team is full of young people, and it amazes me that people. I have a great relationship with people, you know, that worked here 10 years ago. They still call me and ask for advice, and they're moving on to their next big job. And they said, Chef, do you remember that one time when we were walking over to the stadium and you mentioned to me and you said this? And I don't remember, obviously, the conversation at all. But it's amazing sometimes. You have to be careful when you have people that look up to you. They listen to every single word, and you have to make time for them. To give them that time, and you're a perfect example. You have one of your proteins came back and bought your house, so it's really it's an amazing responsibility we have as mentors to young people.
And what's really important also is that word mentors. There's not a lot of kids who have mentors anymore. Nope. You don't see a lot of it. I mean, I've been involved with a lot of kid groups, and it's amazing how often they show up. They have parents who either are not around, they don't care. We're babysitters, and I was with the U.S. Navy Sea Cadets as an officer, and it's a great program for kids 10 to 18 years old, and they gave me the little ones. They gave me the 10 to 14-year-olds. I was like, oh God, no, not those. They were great. They were more fun than the teenagers who had problems. So the 10 to 14-year-olds are, okay, kids, we're going to become Navy SEALs today. Yay! And then they can work out for 8 hours straight while you're watching them because they'll kill you. They can work out nonstop. But it's fun watching the excitement, the zeal, and watching them. Every year we would put up 1,000 flags at one of the memorial cemeteries that's near where we are in Ventura County. 1,000 10-foot flags. And these kids, one of them would actually almost drop it, to 5 others would jump, no, don't drop it, whatever you do. And they'd pick it up. And these are 10 to 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
And they had that feeling of respect and love for what they were doing. They were great. It was, I'd go home thinking, wow, I learned so much from them. And it was just really fun. It was enjoyable watching what they could do and how they could do it. And I'm sure you have the same feelings with, I was watching, I said, one of your YouTubes where you had maybe 30 or 40, maybe more, kids that were all learning. And they were just crowded around you. They looked just like little adoring students. And it was really great to watch that and seeing these are young kids and look how excited they are about this.
And that was in India, by the way. I think the
was it really?
Yeah,
interesting.
And it was, I get goosebumps you just talking about it. I mean, how blessed am I? To have somebody be so excited to hear the words out of my mouth. So that makes me want to jump out of bed more and make sure I do right and do the research I need to inspire these people. The same thing with Afghanistan. We did that for the troops. And we brought 20 celebrities and 30,000 pounds of show gear over there to put the show on for them. Yep. And of course it was all for them. But my God, what they did for me,
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. So, we're blessed. There's miracles that happen around us every single day. It's just whether or not we choose to see them or look for them. It's just where we look.
That is actually a very, very good point, Charles. Very good point. It's whether, and I think that comes out in your book, it's what you choose to see. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember all the different rules and lessons that Owen learned from Chef, but I know that one of them was around, seeing, just being aware of what is around you, and knowing that you can move forward with it. You don't have to be stuck in the past. You can actually move forward and learn.
Right. That's true. And we all need that lesson, don't we? Every once in a while we have a bad day, and then I always tell my staff or anybody really. Sometimes we forget how blessed we are. You think times are tough, but we can't wait for tragedy to happen to realize how blessed we are. You think, I can remember that time when I was wishing that things were better, but next thing you know, you get hit, you get side smacked by some other kind of tragedy. So, I didn't realize how good I had it. So I try to remind my staff and myself, every day, how lucky we are. Bless our lucky stars every day.
Now, you also did something that I didn't know existed. I've been watching the Food Channel for ages. I love watching. I'm not a cook. I'm a lousy cook. My wife's a pretty good cook.
That's probably because Leslie does it.
And she does. She's a very good cook. And
sorry, Charles. You need to know, Rick's wife is also called Leslie.
Oh, okay.
I'm haunted by Leslie's. I don't know. It's scary. But
we're out to get him.
But it's funny watching the Food Channel and stuff. I've grown to. I'm one of those picky eaters that eats nothing. So watching it, I'm watching foods I'd probably never want to eat, but I'm mesmerized by how they cook them, and how you explained the cooking in the book. I'm sitting there just reading, going, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. But I didn't know that there was a Culinary Olympics.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating. And you've been there 7 times. I believe you've got gold medals from that. You not only competed, but you were the coach.
Yeah, I've been a part of teams now for, I want to say 26, 8 years or so. In fact, there's a couple on the wall over there. The World Culinary Olympics happens every 4 years, just like the Sports Olympics, and they're held in Germany. And it's pretty awesome to be able to represent the United States and your own country in anything, whatever it might be. And so the cooking thing is very, very serious. And if you're lucky enough to get on a team, and then you practice for 3 years, and then you go to several international shows. But the big one is the World Culinary Olympics, which is held in Germany. So I've had a amazing career as far as that's concerned, and work my can off. That's no joke. It's just that you can relate it to sports. You know how people train for sports where you still got to work 60, 70 hours for your property, and then work another 25, 30 hours a week, developing your programs and recipes and prep. You're traveling every 3 weeks somewhere in the country to practice, and you compete in Switzerland and Norway and Germany and Ireland and Singapore, a lot of different competitions. So, and that had a lot to do with how I grew up and how I developed my team philosophy, really, because when you cook in competitions now locally, typically you're doing it as an individual, and then when you represent the United States, you do it as a team. So you have to change your mentality very quickly on relying on the talents of the people around you, and so you can come stronger together as a team. And that's where I started learning very early team philosophy. So that certainly has been a great pavement for me to pave my way in my career.
And it sounds like fun. Now, do they televise that?
No, they usually have some clips, but there isn't. There's been talks about doing a TV show, and it's really sad that the U.S. hasn't been smart enough yet to kind of grab a hold of. There's been a couple, one-offs on the Food Network, but it really has merit to follow that road to success on what a team does to compete.
It would be so much fun to watch because, a lot of people say that being in a kitchen is one of two things. It's a state of mind where you're in a zone, but it's also controlled chaos.
Yeah.
And how do you handle the controlled chaos as a cook when you're running a large team? There's a lot of people moving all over the place in some of these kitchens. How do you control that from the chef point of view, and also all of the, if you will, troops around you, all running back and forth, grabbing things? How does that work?
Yeah, well, it doesn't always.
That's true.
But it does. I'll tell you a couple secrets, and I'll keep it brief. Hire great people. And don't be afraid to hire somebody talented than you are. And listen to people. My philosophy in my kitchen, I have a lot of young people here. My philosophy is always never to pretend that I have all the answers. We have team meetings once a week, and we have team meetings once a month with our sous chef teams, and we talk about everything that's going on in the club. So listen to your people and listen to what their needs are. B, don't pretend that you have all the answers, and C, don't be afraid to hire great people and let them do their job. And it's my job to give them everything they need to be successful. So
that's great.
And you mentioned videos.
Probably also give credit where it's due. Because to me, that was always when I used to lead quite a large team, and I used to do, although I was involved in technology, rather than always send emails to people, I used to floor walk, and I used to learn the language of the other people in the different departments. So, the people in the IT department didn't speak necessarily the same language to the people that were teachers, didn't speak the same language that people were administrators. So I used to floor walk, and I very often describe myself as a translator.
Wow.
Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. I wish I had that talent. That's amazing. The more you know your people and know what and know what they love to do, then you can rely on their skills even more. We had a individual that his hobby was photography, so we started using him for a lot of our photographing a lot of our fine dining events. We had somebody who loved to draw. We had him develop some of the menu covers for the special. So when you start tapping into what people's hobbies are, everyone blossoms. And then all of a sudden they're vested in the project. So.
Yeah.
But Rick, you mentioned the videos that you watch. I wanted to share with you before I forget. John and I we're actually this weekend we are developing 10 short films this weekend, and eight of which are recipes that are in the book. So he and I are going to be cooking this weekend.
The chef specials.
Yeah, and they're going to be nice productions, very professionally done, and we'll do 8 different recipes, and then we're going to do a sizzle reel, and then we'll do a fireside chat of how we came up with the book. But the most important piece, the most fun part for everybody out there listening is that these videos will be available for anybody who pre-purchases the book before October.
Great, that sounds fun.
Yeah, so they're going to go on and see us make the recipe. They can make
what I would also like to share with you, Charles, is that I've got a builder. You know, I'm having my whole house renovated at the moment, totally refurbished. And when I was reading the book, I was talking to, I was going up and down the stairs and talking to the builder. And I said to him, I think you need to read this book because it will resonate so much with you. And he said, oh, why is that? I said, a place for everything and everything in its place. He said, yeah, you need to be able to have your hands exactly on the tools when you need them. Right. And I said, the other thing was wipe down the piano. He said, yes, you've got to keep the place clean. Yeah. You absolutely have to, because if you don't, you come in the next day to mess.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And this is somebody who is, plumber, builder, tradesman, and what the skills and lessons you were talking about in your book actually resonated with him, who works in a totally different industry.
Right. Well, that's awesome. Isn't that fun? What a great comment. We supply is what you're talking about, everything in its place, and it drives me crazy when people don't work that way. Especially if we have to work that way. We're doing 80 to 100 functions a week here at the club, so you got to be ready.
Now, are you in Houston now?
I am.
You're in Houston, okay. When I was in Houston, I was in Dallas one time, and I grew up in New York, and I remember that we were working at Frito-Lay on a project, and the VP there says, there's good Yankees and there's damn Yankees. And I went, what kind are we? He goes, you're a good Yankee. And I said, why? He goes, you're leaving tomorrow. I was like, okay, I feel the love, thanks.
I could probably tell you a few stories, but I don't remember them right now.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, but I love Texas. It's a fun place, and the people are friendly, and they're different. They're just, they have that confidence about them, and it's good.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Vermont, and hence the story of the book. The book is in New England.
Yep.
The recipe is set in New England, and my dad owned a brownstone. Just like it was described in the book, he owned a diner.
Yep.
And so that I remember climbing on bags of flour when I was a kid and watching my dad flip the donuts and do all that. So that's where that influence came from, so it was a big move for us to come down to Texas. It was really different. It was different.
Yeah, it sounds like it went well though.
Yeah. We've been here 17 years now. It's been great for us.
Well, Chef, we're about at the end of our time, and I know you're busy, but, really, thank you so much for writing the book. I know just in the last several days you've touched both of us with that book.
Oh, absolutely.
And I will be more than glad to recommend. In fact, we're going to be doing something in the near future when it comes out on a new show that we're planning. We're going to give probably, I don't know, we're thinking of 10 or 100 of them away just to listeners and viewers, because I've done that with the I think I've given about 200 of the Go-Givers out. Wow. I love that book, and I relate to it very, very well, because I've had an experience I can talk about another time, which really was one of those Go-Giver experiences that I didn't expect, and it turned into a very good thing. Giving without expecting a darn thing back, and boy, it works. It works, and your book, like I said, it should be mandatory reading for anyone or any student. Fantastic. Really, to help motivate them, especially young kids. Get them. A lot of those books. I grew up in the '60s and '70s, and I was in high school in the '70s and college. We had a ton of books back then to help you explore yourself more. They're not there anymore. You have to really look hard for those kind of books, and maybe that's by design, but it's a shame. It's a shame that the young kids don't have access to those to those books because
it's not just the kids, Rick.
It's the adults. Sure.
It's actually also the parents, the older brothers and sisters, the teachers. You know, sometimes the teacher doesn't always know best.
No, that's true.
Sometimes it's actually important for young people to read about something from a young person's perspective, because then it maybe makes more sense.
Right. Yeah. That's true. Well, I surely appreciate you all having me on.
Oh, thanks for coming on, and we will do our best to help promote your book, and really seriously, from the heart, we really appreciate what you guys have written. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know about you, Leslie, but I just felt like I was Owen in that book, just watching and learning, it was
lovely. It wasn't for me. I wasn't Owen. I just saw so many of the kids, the young people that I had taught, and that were just a bit muddled up. They weren't bad kids, and don't get me wrong, we couldn't save all of them. In the college in the community college I was in, some went on to do maybe not the best things, but the majority of them just really this would have been a book I would have recommended them and the other teachers to read.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's true. And you said one thing in the book that's very important. Anyone who's ever touched your life, even if they're gone now from your life, they're still there.
Oh, my mother sends me white feathers on a regular basis.
Yeah. That was just great. It's so true, too, because people don't think about that. They think about, they're not in my life anymore, I lost them, or they passed away. And don't be a victim. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Feel glad you had them in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just great. Well, again, Chef, such a pleasure meeting you. Great fortune on this book. I hope it just becomes a #1 bestseller. You've had bestsellers before.
And a movie, please.
Yes, and a movie. I think that would be a wonderful movie.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Same here. Thank you much for being here. And for everybody watching, we'll give you details on the book on the show notes. So stay tuned. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.